what is the quickest way in property to start earning £10,000 a month? Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, surely it's a rent-to-rent business, or maybe I'm going to do BRRR and buy something, recycle my cash, go again and again and again on single lets, or even turbocharge that and do it on HMOs, the same thing. But both of those buying strategies are very slow. So I'm going to give you two strategies in this video to talk through, that I'm going to talk through, that is going to get to you £10,000 a month quickly. Now, how do you do that? First one, I think, because I often talk about getting a trading business while you build your overall property business, so you have an income coming in whilst you're building your portfolio, and that would be deal sourcing. So deal sourcing is going to be a way where you can quite quickly get into property investing and get an income in property investing to live off, so you can leave your current job, so you can go full-time in property and build your property portfolio with all of that time you're going to free up. So how would I go about deal sourcing? Well, I turn this on its head a bit, because I hear a lot of people talk about deal sourcing. We need to find below market value deals, etc. And this can be quite difficult to find these deals. So I flip it on its head a bit and say, what are investors looking for? Well, there's a lot of time poor people wanting to invest in property, and you don't need to find them such an amazing deal. They want to park their money into property. They want to invest in property and probably have some money to the side. So the number one skill you need to do is find these types of people who are busy at work and can't invest in property, yet know property is a good place to park their money for the longer term. So they're going to get capital growth plus a little bit of income, and it's not necessarily the income now that they want, but they want the income in the future, the capital in the future. And capital is often the way that rich people make their money in property. Really wealthy people park their money in property because it's a safe, secure asset that does provide some income. And obviously, getting mortgages, you're leveraging your money too, so you don't need phenomenal capital growth to make a good return on the deposit that you put into your property. So how would I go about finding these people? Well, a lot of people turn up to networking events in the property sector and go there looking for these types of people. Well, these types of people are looking for deals. And if they do have some money, they probably want a BRRR type thing, a buy, renovate, refurbish, refinance and rent out type property, where you put your deposit in and you get your money back out again. Whereas if you're working full time, getting a good income, potentially you're parking savings into property. So where do you find these types of people? Well, you're probably more likely to find them at business networking events, and therefore I would go to more business orientated networking events. And obviously the adage, if you're big on social media, people will find you too. So those two avenues means that you can turn property sourcing on its head and you become a property finder, a property investment finder, rather than a real big deal sourcer. So therefore you can then start to find what they want for property. So find out what they're after, what makes them a good deal, so you go and find that rather than finding deals and then seeing if an investor wants it, which means that the deal could disappear before you find an investor. So start finding, let's say, 10 investors who want to invest, and that will then get you to 10k a month. Because if you're finding investment properties for 250k and you're charging 2 to 3%, that's going to be 5 to 7,500 a deal. So you only need 1 to 2 deals per month to get to this 10k a month. So it's not that difficult. And if you had 10 people, you're almost there. So then you start finding 1 to 2 deals a month, marrying them up with these people. It's going to take a bit of time, because obviously properties these days take a little bit longer to exchange and complete on than they did a few years ago. Everything seems to have slowed since COVID. Don't ask me why, but everything seems to move a lot slower, and mortgages, etc., can take a little bit longer to get done. So then you can go out and find, to their investment criteria, properties in their areas, etc. And if you get good at finding deals, the money will follow you. You just need to do the marketing to then find and attract those investors in, who become on your waiting list, and then you almost you source to specification. The second method for getting to this 10k a month quicker is, you might say, Mike, well, that's just a business that you're creating and you're creating revenue pretty quickly, but it's not actually an investment business that you're turning 10k a month from. So if you want to do it through ownership, I would say you need to go bigger. And one deal alone could potentially get to this 10k a month pretty quickly. And I'll talk through a couple of examples of what my mentees have done to do this in one deal. Now, they weren't complete novice property investors, but maybe you've got a couple of properties and you're going, this is too slow. This BRRR, whether it's HMOs or single lets, is taking me a while because all of this refurbishment is taking me 6 to 8 months to refinance. And that's being optimistic on an HMO. Your HMO is probably more likely to take 9 months to a year to complete. So if you want to do that, I would look for big portfolios, big blocks of flats. I'll take you through an example of one of my mentees, Caroline, what she has done in order to secure around 10k a month. Now, she found a below market value, and it wasn't necessarily hugely below market value, because what is the value when the building is really large? But there was 15 shops below and 15 flats above, spurning out close to £200,000 a year. And therefore, if you manage to buy that, you're going to be making almost £10,000 a month out of one of those. Now, quite often, what you want to be doing is finding retiring landlords who own these types of buildings, who needs to sell them, want to retire, and you could do some sort of creative deal to get this done. So what did we do? We segmented this building into 2 bits. It was currently 1 freehold, but we created some leases and bought the commercial element in one section and the residential section in another section. And by splitting up the portfolio, you can recycle money through both elements if you needed to. In this case, actually, we didn't need to recycle so much cash through the commercial element because she utilized pension money, SAS money, to buy the commercial element, which you're allowed to do. And then we also, at the same time as buying that, exchanged on the uppers. That meant there was a massive discount in the uppers because we got the uppers valued at 1.2 million. And actually the remaining part of the purchase price, because the overall purchase price was 1.2 million, we bought the commercial for 660, meant that we had 740 left to pay. Now, these uppers were valued, as I said, at 1.2 million, making the building worth, I think in total, 1.86 million. And therefore, we utilised that equity that was in the uppers to buy the uppers and bridged that on value as opposed to purchase price. That allowed us to get into this deal for only 50k. And by the way, she found an investor to fund that 50k because she didn't have it herself. So without having loads of money, she suddenly bought this 1.86 million building that once the rental reviews had taken place, the income or the rental income was over 200k a year, meaning that she was, as soon as she completed on the uppers, meant that she was earning over 10k per month. So by going up that level, where other people aren't looking, where other people aren't investing, where people who with loads of money aren't necessarily buying these assets, they're looking for other assets, and these people are struggling to sell, you can create some constructive and creative deals that allow you to get into this without huge amounts of capital and can hit that 10k a month pretty quickly. And this is what my students do time and time again. So again, another example of this is a building with 6 flats and 2 shops, where, again, the landlord was struggling to sell and he wanted to sell it and secure a price. And one of my students came in and secured it and negotiated an amazing deal because we structured and looked at what this guy was looking to accept and what we could give him and utilize the cash flow from the property to pay down a deposit that when we came to refinance it, there was enough money in the pot that the mortgage would make up the rest of the purchase price. So he bought it with £10,000 down. This was a 1% deposit. And that's all he needed to complete on the building, not delayed exchange completion, complete on the building. Then there was some stamp duty to pay. But all of a sudden, with his high cash flow strategies, he could move the profitability or the rent to come out of this way up into £10,000 a month. And with that money, he could pay the landlord down that when he comes to refinance in 2 to 3 years, he can redeem the loan that the landlord's given him to buy the property that the landlord was selling, because it's a paper exercise if you can structure it correctly, do the right things, and this is what's going to make you get £10,000 a month really quickly by doing deals like this. So maybe you need one, maybe you need a couple to get to that magic figure. Imagine if you earned over £100,000 a year from property after your first year investing. And after all, hey, I managed to buy £4 million worth of property and get a high cash flow within my first year of investing that allowed me to jump out my job. So I've been doing this and did this 20 years ago. These strategies still work today. So why don't you start to think about, oh, maybe if I've bought one or two properties and it's going to take me forever to get there, think about moving up. Maybe you want to book a call with me so that we can discuss whether this strategy might be suitable for you. Even if it's not, even if you don't want to do it, you probably have a clear understanding after our conversation of what direction you should go to accelerate your journey, because that's what I do. I really help investors accelerate their property investing journey, and by often it's like moving up a level pretty quickly. So you buy properties off landlords that are retiring, and they're retiring in their droves at the moment because those that have been in property for a while just aren't liking property anymore with all the changes that the government's made. So they're exiting, they're retiring, they want to get rid of their properties. And actually, a big block like that can be quite hard because the institutional investors don't want it. There aren't that many investors who can do it. So this is where we've got a strategy that really works for these types of buildings. And if you're interested and want to make 10K a month pretty quickly, then why not book a complimentary call with myself? The link will be down there. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel for more interesting property strategies that you can earn quite a lot of money without a huge amount of deposit pretty quickly. So stay tuned.